Chapter 4 The Adventure of the Wood-Beasts. The Hall of the Glowing Heart stood in the depths of the Valley of Toil, a place of comfort and desire in a too cheerless land. In the well-tended gardens grew the trees with the leaves of healing, the many precious herbs of ease, and all those blooms whose beauty and perfume cheer the soul of men. In the midst stood the hall with the emblem of the great king above the door for all to see. To many a tired eye and wounded spirit, this was the fairest sight that the valley could show. The lord of the hall was the noble Amycus, who found his joy in serving the king by serving his people. The emblem was the master key to all he had, from the plenty of his table to the richer treasures of his heart. Nor was he poor in any good thing, for his deeds had been long been known to the great king through those who had found harborage and healing within his doors. Therefore had the lord of the hall been daily enriched by the royal favor, in wealth of soul and estate, and in the precious balm of happiness. Giving freely of all that he had learned that the great king will be no man's debtor. Sir Constant came to this place soon after his battle with the Black Knight. While his heart was still uplifted by his victory, he was welcomed with honor, and at first felt nothing but joy in the right noble company which had sought that day the hospitality of Amycus. Yet ere the evening was past, his joy was overclouded, and peril lay about his path once more. Among the guests that day were two famous knights of the splendid way. One of these was the aged and gallant Sir Valorous, whose face was lined with the wear of years, and whose hair was snowy white, but whose eye had the light of eternal youth. If his strength had sunken with time, this loss was well repaid by skill in the use of arms, and there was no knight more to be feared in battle, more to be trusted in the thorny way of leadership. Sir Constant looked upon him with reverence, but not without self-abasement, for when he heard that good knight's story, small indeed seemed his own endeavors. Moreover, Sir Valorous was a cousin of his own lord, Sir Fortus, a second claim to love and worship. But there was also at the house of Amycus another knight of renown, Sir Felix of the Clean Heart. He was a knight of such purity and power that perils which had broken other men held little dread for him. It was said that his shield had never been dimmed, and there was a glory in his face, as one who saw his king always, and knew his most sacred counsels. He had been given at last the governance of a great city, and was now on his way to his post, resting at the hall of the glowing heart, with the friend whose comradeship he had ever loved. By the will of all he sat at the right hand of Amycus, honored for his own sake and his king's. Of all who sat and honored him, none was more generous at the first than Constant, who loved Sir Felix for the glory of his face, and for the greater glory he had won in the royal service. But while he sat and watched him, there came to his ear a whisper, gentle and low, but deadly clear. Some good knights come by great honours with wondrous ease, said the whisper. And when the knight turned to see, he found that the speaker was a knight squire, fair and quiet of mien, clad in a green tunic and armed with a dagger. In that moment he spoke and was gone, lost among the servitors at the door. But he left his whisper in our good knight's ear. And thereafter the feast was tainted with bitterness. This bitterness remained throughout the night. It did not depart with the coming of day. He had, therefore, no heart to meet Amycus and his guests, and resolved to leave before he should see them. So when he had armed himself, he sought the steward, and by him sent words of farewell and gratitude to his hosts and the knights of the fellowship. When this was done, he took once more to the way through the valley. But an hour later the steward sought his master to tell him of this and another matter, whereupon Amycus hastened to find Sir Valorous and Sir Felix, who were preparing to depart. "I am troubled greatly," he said. "Sir Constant set out an hour ago, and I fear that he may encounter sore peril by the way." "How may this be?" cried Sir Valorous. "Is there an aid that we may give? For I loved the young knight much, and would have accompanied him." "What I dread," said Amycus, "is the cunning of the evil brood of the Black Knight. They have holds in this region, and it is said that one of them was in this house but yesterday, standing near Sir Constant while he sat at table. He had a disguise of harmlessness, but my servants declare that they marked him well. I fear that Sir Constant may be waylaid." The two knights called for their arms. "We will go together," said Sir Felix. "The duty were plain even if there were no joy in it. But I also loved Sir Constant, and I could not wish a better comrade." Then Amycus went to a cabinet of precious things, and he took there a small vial. "Here is an elixir," he said, "which we distill from the goodly herbs in our garden. It is most potent for comfort and healing. If that young knight be in need, give him of this in the king's name." "In the king's name," said Sir Valorous reverently, and he placed the vial in his bosom. Some time after he left the hall of the Glowing Heart, Sir Constant found a man sitting by the wayside. This man saluted him courteously, and when his greeting was returned, rose to walk with him. Then the knight knew him. "Surely I saw you yesterday at the house of Amycus," he said. "Even so," answered the squire, "sent by my lord with a greeting. I stayed among the guests to see the renowned Sir Felix, but I left full early, having need to return." They went on together, and in a little he began to speak more of Sir Felix. "He is young to have gained so much honor," he said. "For me it is age and honor that go fittingly together, and I doubt if glories earned so soon will wear well." Now the mood of the knight was still upon Sir Constant, and he said nothing in rebuke. Moreover, he was still silent when the squire in green said much more of the same tempter, for this evil talk found some echo in his own heart. Thus it was that the company of the stranger did not displease him, and they continued together until they came to the end of the squire's journey. There a gate and a broad walk led to a strong castle. "Here is my lord's hold," he said, "and I entreat you to come in and rest." Though not himself a knight of the splendid way, he holds that order in great esteem, and is never weary of entertaining its members. But see, my lord comes down to meet us. The squire's master was a knight of stern bearing and of great power. He wore a sword as one who could use it well, and a shirt of ringed mail beneath a surcoat which bore the emblem of a red wolf clasping a dagger. Yet despite his stern attire, he was most gracious in his greeting. My poor house is ever open to a knight of the way, he said. Too seldom have I the honor of giving them shelter, yet it is but morning, and it would be no kindness to delay your journey. Therefore, my servants brings a cup of wine to cheer you on the road. The servant came with a silver cup upon a slaver, and Sir Constant could not forbear to drink. He found the wine most full pleasant to the taste, and knew not that it was called adulteration, potent to mislead and confuse the mind. And while he drank, the Knight of the Wolf questioned his squire. Didst give my greeting to the noble Amicus? And saw you there the famed Sir Felix? I gave my lord's greeting, said the squire, and I saw Sir Felix in the supper chamber. And how seemed he? As noble and valiant as they say of him? He is a noble young knight, said the squire. Yet to me it seemed that some men win honours with wondrous ease. Ah, said the Knight of Wolf, it is even as I thought. When is favour fairly given? And who can prove that this knight ever fought so valiantly? I would find by any wayside virtue in merit as great as his, but by some hap it has no city to govern. He smiled as he spoke, and Sir Constant found the words as pleasant as the wine. So when the Knight of the Wolf desired his company further, he could not well refuse. Here is a wood in my park, he said, with a broad and shady path that presently comes back to the road again. It will afford you quiet and ease and shade, and we will see you on your way in safety. He opened the gate and showed the path, and Sir Constant, being thus constrained, went within. Nor was the promise vain, for the wood was cool and shady indeed. The Knight of Wolf walked closely at his side, as friendly as might be, while the squire followed them. And ever as they went, the talk was of the same tempter, lauding those whose merit was greater than the world was aware. And as for battles, said the knight warmly, tell me if this Sir Felix is ever such fought a fight as that of yours in the palace of Sir Joyous. Sir Constant heard this deadly talk and suffered it, partially through the potency of the wine he had taken. Thus it came about that he did not see how the path, instead of coming back to the road, wound away into darker and still darker depths of the wood, till thickets grew close on either side and the trees met overhead. Moreover, it went steadily downward, leaving behind the pure air and sunlight, and the breezes that blow freely on the uplands in the splendid way. And ever the Knight of the Wolf, conversing pleasantly, held close to his side, and the squire came stealthily behind. All suddenly the path came to an end, and this at a sombre glade where stood a grim and frowning castle. Its walls were dark, its mighty gates as stern as prison bars. No beam of sunlight might pierce its narrow casement, or play along its deserted battlements, for no sun could overcome the screen of mournful trees that overshadowed it, and there was no laughter of children or converse of men to break the spell of silence and gloom. Neither shall man gaze on the stronghold so charged with menace and despair. Sir Constans started in his surprise and stayed his steps, but his guide, still smiling, took him by the arm. Fear nothing, Sir Constant, he said mockingly. Here dwell two good brothers of mine who love the silence of the wood, but never fail to welcome a guest. Right gladly they will give you hospitality. See, they come. Out from the door of the hold, that grim, forbidding portal, came two knights, clad in weighty mail from head to foot, their faces hidden within their helms, shields upon their arms, and drawn swords in their hands. One wore armor of stone gray, and the emblem upon his shield was a strange emblem of dungeon bars. The other was clad in raven black, and the emblem upon his shield was a crouching leopard. Nor had Sir Constant need to look twice to know his most deadly foe. Ho, Sir Constant! cried the Black Knight. Do we meet so soon? Here is warm welcome from these good brothers of mine. Will you surrender your sword, or shall it be battle first? No more was needed to drive away the fumes of the wine and to rouse our knight to the doomful truth. "Old fool that I was," he said in his heart, "to heed those lying voices and so be led to ruin." So swiftly he closed his visor and sought his sword, yet not too swiftly, for there was another hand upon the hilt, the hand of the cunning squire, who had crept up stealthily to pluck the weapon from its sheath. But Constant gave a cry of wrath, and with his mail hand struck the knave so lusty a blow that he fell and lay, his dagger ringing upon the stones, and his false tongue silenced forever. Then the knight sprang back, and dressed his shield, and drew the three foes before him. And so began that great fight in the woods of beasts, a battle whose scars he should bear to the last day of his journey. In his wrath and bitterness, Sir Constant did not wait for his foes, but fell upon them mightily, so that he won his way to better ground. But soon they recovered and drew together, wolf and leopard, in the dread emblem of the dungeon hold, and so closely did they press him that it seemed as though the dark wood had rendered up its very beasts to tear him down. Anon they fell back before him, but only to come again with hungry teeth and angry claws. Fiercely they struck at him. Stoutly he upheld the guard of strong shield and swinging blade, longing for the vision of the face, but knowing well that no thing of beauty could seek him in these foul depths. Only grim and evil things were there, stealing silently out of the thickets, waiting for the moment when he should be struck to the earth. Now they pressed him back from his place of vantage, for such was the weight of the two mailed knights that they began to bear him down. At last he saw through the mists of despair that the leopard was close upon him, while the wolf sought an opening to strike him from behind. To keep guard before and behind was too great a task, for he was now so spent that he could not move swiftly. But as the leopard seemed to spring there came a sudden thought of that which was foe to this evil beast, the clean heart that knows no foul in unmanly bitterness, but rejoices in the Son and air of heaven. But I had enmity to it, he groaned, and thus I am come to this pass, lost in a maze of evil things. But at that dread moment it seemed to him that he heard a faint and distant call, and lo, along the gloomy woods a sudden light, the flash of a shining shield. In the fainting night he gave a great cry, as it were with his last strength. To me, in the king's name, to me! The Black Knight, startled, paused in his onset, yet only for a moment. Someone comes, he cried fiercely. Let us make an end. So they ran upon him together, and in a moment brought him to his knees. Again they fiercely he struck at them. Stoutly he upheld the guards of strong shield and swinging blade, rushed upon him, beating down furiously in swaying shield and wavering blade, aiming cruel blows against the drooping helm. But even as they laid him low, a great cry rang through the glade, In the king's name! And the stalwart knights of the splendid way burst upon them with clashing shields and flashing swords. In a breath, the attackers were sent reeling back, and the prostrate knight was covered by the strong weapons of his comrades. Then it seemed that at the glory of the face of Sir Felix, the evil spirits of the wood shrank back to their lair in deadly fear. And the Knight of the Clean Heart raised Sir Constant to his feet, and gave him back his fallen sword. Hearken, comrade, he cried mightily. This is your battle, and the glorious end shall be yours. Strike hard and conquer. As for us, we stand by to guard against a coward blow. At that call, Sir Constant recovered himself, for it was as wind to the heart. He saw on the one side the aged and gallant Sir Valorous, who was cousin to Sir Fortus, and whose story spoke so clearly of the great hopes of those who looked to find him worthy of their gallant fellowship. On the other side stood Sir Felix, with the clean name and the clean heart of his own longing, such a knight as he would have loved to be, but could never be, for the foes that ambushed him so easily, and the feet that so quickly turned aside from the splendid way. Yet even in his shame these stood by him, his cause their own. So his heart bounded, and his arm was nerved, and the light came back in his eyes. In a moment he forgot his wounds, and renewed the battle fiercely. But the false knights of the wood were dumbfounded and aghast, for they had no mind to fight, when there was no hope of a coward stroke. So in a little space the Knight of the Wolf was down, his strong sword broken, and himself bleeding to death. And the Grey Knight and the Black Knight were striving to escape together by the gate that led into the courtyard to their hold. But there he fell upon them, and with one mighty stroke clove the Grey Knight through the helm, and brought him clanging to death at the very threshold of the gate. One stroke he gave also to the Black Knight, so that the sword fell upon his broken arm, and he groaned with pain, and baffled rage. But ere another blow might be given, he passed within the gate and shut it fast. Then its bars were between, and the servants of the house, seeing his sore need, ran out, and bore him in, and shut fast the frowning door of the castle. Once again has this sorcerer knight escaped you, said Sir Valorous, but this time so sorely wounded that he will not lightly see another battle. Moreover, these powerful brothers of his are dead, and can join him in no further snares. But this forest is an evil place, a place of dire enchantment, hiding all manner of evil things. Let us back to the road. Ay, said Sir Felix, these are dread foes, of whom I have heard, though I have been spared the battle with them. The knight of the Red Wolf must be the guileful champion Sir Malice, and the Grey Knight is his more puissant brother, the lord of the house of hate. Ill goes it with any knight whom they lure to this place, for there is no dungeon so dark and hopeless as his. That false squire is surely Master Envy, commonly called the Whisperer, and they are all of the brood of the Black Knight, whose crouching leopard is the true emblem of whose evil powers that are under his rule. It is well indeed that we go back to the road. But when Sir Constant heard this, and knew the nature of the foes to whom he had lent his faith, what with his shame and the pain of his wound, he sank swooning to the ground. Tenderly they knelt beside him, and unlaced his helm, and unbraced his dented shield, and removed his gauntlets, that they might chafe his bruised and bleeding hands. Nevertheless, he could not face them, and the tears of sorrow were upon his cheek. At last, that I should have come to this, he sighed, and that any friend should find me in such foulness. I am not worthy to bear the king's arms, or to walk in the splendid way. But Sir Valorous spoke strongly, while the light of love and pity filled his eyes. Where should we fear to follow, my brother? He said. Know you not what the Lord of the Vision of the Face did? How he went down into the very pit of slime and shame, so that the foul things of this wood came upon him? It had their will of him, and locked him in a sinner's tomb? Nay, I tell you that it was by his will that we sought you here, and it is in my heart that even he, came hither with us. For our way through the perilous wood was strangely lighted, as though one passed before us to be our guide. Then Sir Constant looked up, and he saw a wondrous thing, for the aged knight had removed his helm, so that his white locks made a halo about his head. The, compan- the compassion in his eyes was a light as of stars, and behind was the gloom of the unsunned wood. So for a moment it seemed that it was not the face of Sir Valorous, but that other face, the face of the vision. Nevertheless, it was Sir Valorous that he saw, worn with age and stained with dust of the road. Then said Sir Felix of the Clean Heart, his voice full of wonder, what is this shame that he speaks of? Is there shame in a battle fought so well in face of mighty odds? I tell you, Sir Constant, comrade beloved, that though I have great honor from the king, never have I had the sore trial of such a battle as yours. Nay, said Sir Valorous, out of the wisdom of his years, his battle is not your battle, and your place is not his place. For him the snares and conflicts of the wayside, the whisperer and the plotter, and the ever-present terror of the black beast. For you the clean heart and its glory, but also the awful cares of the governance of a city, with many eyes upon you daily. Nor shall each wonder at the other, or desire the other's place, but do his own part faithfully and well, waiting the king's good time. Only each shall aid the other as the need arises. And I trow that at the end of the way all shall stand before the king together, with the same light upon all, and the same joy from his smile. Then it shall not be asked whether he had a city to govern, or fought with beasts in a wood, but whether he was a faithful knight, who ever sought to keep undimmed the vision of the face. Then he took from his breast the vial of the noble Amicus, and bade Sir Constant drink. And when he drank, his pain was assuaged, and his heart comforted, for the vial held the oil of comfort, and the cordial of good courage. When he was thus restored, they aided him through the wood again, leaving behind that frowning hold in those stricken foes. There were noisome creatures in the woods, foul spirits who obeyed the rule of the Black Knight. But though their presence was perceived, none dared those shining shields and ready blades. At last they came to the road, when Sir Felix hastened the hall of the glowing heart, and brought the servants of Amicus to aid. So in a while they had the wounded knight again in that good friend's care, where he laid until his wounds were healed. For in the gardens of that place are the trees with the leaves of healing, and those precious herbs from which they distill the oil of comfort and the cordial of good courage. Though a host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. And now shall my head be lifted up above my enemies round about me. Therefore I will offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yes, I will sing praises unto the Lord. Psalm 27, 3 through 6.